So how long have you been studying Chinese for?
Oh, well, I've been studying Chinese for about 5 years, including primary school, but in high school I've only been studying for 3 years.
Okay, and what do you find challenging about learning Chinese?
Mostly writing. Writing's very difficult.
So the characters?
Yeah, hard to remember.
Do you have any tricks for learning characters?
Usually I just write them out continuously,
Okay.
many times. In the back of the book we have this section where you can write them out 10 or so times, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, that
Practice
usually
makes
helps.
perfect?
Yeah.
Yeah? And have you found something to be very rewarding about learning Chinese?
Oh, well, I love learning something that a lot of people don't learn as such, and at home no one learns it, so it's just an independent sort of thing I'm learning. And it's great to, during class every now and then talk to your friends in Chinese and the teachers don't know what you're saying.
Oh, that's a nice thing, yeah. And so not many people learn the language. Do you think you'll continue with the language?
Oh yeah, I'll continue all the way through school.
Fantastic.
Sure.
So how do you expect it to be relevant for you in your maybe in your career, or do you think it will be useful for you?
Yeah, when I'm older, I want to do something with Chinese, so definitely we'll keep doing Chinese for as long as possible.
Fantastic. And you started learning quite young, and now you are in year 9. How has your perception of learning a language changed during that time?
Oh, quite a lot actually. In primary school I didn't really like Chinese. It was probably one of my least favourite subjects back in primary school. But then in high school I got more into it and I really enjoyed it, and so it's gone from being my least favourite subject to my favourite subjects.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, now we'll pass to you. How long have you been learning Chinese for?
I've been learning Chinese since year 7, and that would have been 3 years. Before that I learnt Japanese for 6 years.
Okay, and what is the most difficult thing about learning Chinese?
Same as key characters.
Characters, yeah.
It's hard to remember all of them. There's no alphabet in Chinese, so you have to learn everything as something new.
And how many hours do you think you need to put into your Chinese a week to keep up with the demands?
Definitely more than the amount of classes you have per week. We have 3, so I'd say at least 3 to 4 hours.
Wow, and a lot of that is just practicing the writing?
Not as much as I should, but yeah.
And what do you enjoy the most about the classes or the course?
I'd say learning new ways to say things, new things to talk about, and it's just building up to hopefully being fluent.
Okay. So have you, over time, has your perception about learning Chinese changed at all?
I don't really think so. I've always thought of it as a useful subject and an enjoyable one.
Okay, and why is it useful for you?
Well, Mandarin's the most spoken language in the world, so later in life, possibly international studies or jobs, it could really help. And it's just a skill that not as many people have nowadays, so it's good.
And do you hope to go to China during your school time?
Yeah.
Yeah? How will that happen? What do you plan to do?
Well, I'm going on a school China trip the end of term. Should be good.
And what do you look forward to about being in China, considering you have been learning Chinese for so long?
I went before a few years ago, and I really look forward to interacting with more of the people this time, because back then I didn't learn any Chinese, and I'd really like to talk to people.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You said you've been learning, you speak Arabic at home?
Yeah, I do.
So Chinese is your 3rd language, is it?
Including English, it'll be 4th. Yeah,
the 4th
by the
language.
end of school, hopefully.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges of learning Chinese for you?
Well, I'd say similar to what everybody else has already said, is the characters are pretty unique. All the languages that I've learnt so far have an alphabet, and that sort of carries on throughout the whole language. And Chinese I find it pretty unique, and I sort of enjoy it that it's a lot different to other languages. It's just sort of a different learning perspective, and it just makes the language more fun to learn, to be honest.
Okay, great. And so when did you begin learning Chinese?
I've been learning for 3 years in the senior school, and I spent 1 year in the junior school learning it a little bit.
Okay, has your perception about learning Chinese changed from year 6 to now in year 9?
I'd say it has. In year 6, I didn't really see Chinese as that useful of a skill. you know, being younger, more naive, I suppose, not fully realizing what it could do for me and not really understanding the language. I feel like now I understand it a lot more, even if I'm not quite as good as I could be. I feel like I know a lot more about it and what it could do for me in the future.
Okay, so you mentioned the word useful. For somebody who already speaks several languages fluently, why will Chinese be, another language, Chinese, be useful for you?
Well, I always found that with learning languages, I've always thought it's quite amazing how you can learn a language, you can learn a skill, and suddenly gain the ability to talk to millions of people across the world and have different conversations and learn their views and opinions that you could have never learnt before. And I think learning Chinese is just going to increase my ability to do that.
Okay, so you hope to go one day?
In the future, I hope to enter international relations and be a diplomat, and I feel like Chinese is going to be very useful for me.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously Chinese will be useful if you go to China, but do you ever get the opportunity living in Australia to speak Chinese in the community?
Absolutely. I'd say that the more that the Asian century, as our headmaster very religiously puts it, as more as that starts to be a thing, I feel like it's not just going to be in Asia or in China that's a real thing. It's going to be all around the world that people are speaking all these different languages. And I feel like eventually it's going to be necessary that everybody learns these languages and even to speak to people in their own country.
What do you think of when people say, oh, you don't need to learn another language because everybody speaks English? What do you think of that?
Well, I'd say a lot of those people are maybe a little bit naive and not fully aware of how in the future communicating with people is going to be incredibly important. You can sort of see that from a lot of things happen in the world, and a lot of misunderstandings and bad things that happen in the world can be taken down to communication and people not really understanding each other. And I feel like learning these different languages and being able to understand people is going to be able to do a lot of good in the future.
So you think that even if you speak a small amount of the language, the person you're speaking to will appreciate that and it will put you on a different standing with that person? Even
a hello to somebody passing by can make their day, so I feel like, yes, it definitely does.
Okay, thank you.